I'm Shelby,
And I'm Kacie.
and this is Chill Seeker.
So, Shelby, what do you have for me this week?
So, today I'm going to take you on a journey down a rabbit hole that made me question the very nature of reality that we live in. My whole life, I never believed a word of aliens or UFOs until everything I thought I knew was turned on its head about 2 years ago when I saw the infamous 2023 congressional hearings going on. I wasn't convinced at all. I figured it was probably a hoax until I looked a little bit deeper, and all of a sudden I fell entirely over the edge. I'm going to take you with me on a trip that there is absolutely no going back from, exactly the way I experienced it. I'm talking about UAPs, or unidentified aerial phenomena, formerly known as UFOs. American folklore is full of stories about gray or green aliens and flying saucers. And on the surface, it's always been so easy to dismiss these as fiction. Lies, delusions, and conspiracy theories that only belong in sci-fi movies. But in 2023, high-ranking military and CIA officials testified before Congress about non-human biologics and secretive crash retrieval programs. When I watched this testimony, I felt compelled, despite my skepticism, to take a look further back in time and see if there was something I was missing. And boy, did I find so much more than what I was looking for. In 2017, in perhaps one of the most significant leaks in all of US history, a Pentagon insider exploited a loophole to release classified footage of UFOs, published by the New York Times and confirmed years later by the Department of Defense. This wasn't blurry lights or hearsay. These were videos recorded by veteran fighter pilots, showing objects moving in ways that defy our understanding of physics.
What?
I know. These developments forced even the most skeptical among us to consider, could non-human technology really be in operation on our planet? Today, I'm excited to take you on part one of a close and critical investigation into some of the most credible pieces of evidence of UAPs in recent history, so you can decide for yourself.
I'm so excited. Also, just quick question. Why is
Mm-hmm.
it UAP instead of UFO? I've always known them to be UFOs.
So basically, it was changed by the government and by people in the business, right? Or investigating this kind of stuff. Because, first of all, the stigma against UFOs as being, conspiracy theories, crazy people, right? But also because UAP phenomena encapsulates more of a broad sense of like what it could even be. Is it an illusion? Is it a weather phenomena, a pattern or something, not just a flying object? So from my
Okay,
understanding, that's why it's changed, but UFO is still not wrong. So I'll kind of use it interchangeably.
good to know. Thank you.
So, for everyone listening, Kacie has no idea what I'm going to be talking about today. So, Kacie, let me ask you on a scale of 1 to 10. How concerned are you about UFOs or any news you may have heard about them? Like, is this something
Ooh,
that's on your radar at all? Pun completely intended.
I love it. It's definitely on my radar. I don't know that I'm concerned. I'm more curious. Like, I want to know what they are. I personally have my own opinion on what I think all of this is, but I
Ooh.
really want to know what you have to tell me today and what you're going to unveil for me because my opinion may change.
Interesting. Okay, I'm super excited to hear it. But yeah, I will share first. And I love that you're curious and not just afraid Because I think with things we don't understand, it's always good to try to approach them from a place that isn't fearful, like why go to the worst case scenario first? So anyway, we'll have to see as I tell you these stories how your opinion might evolve.
Yes.
So I promise I'm not here to just rehash the same UFO stories, expecting you to believe them just because. Instead, this episode is a close look into the credibility of the people behind the story. Because we all know humans lie, so why should we believe anyone who claims to have seen a UFO? The answer is we don't have to, unless there is, like in the first cases I'll talk about, Department of Defense confirmed video evidence of the encounter, with official confirmation that the government does in fact not know what the nature of the phenomena is in question. It also helps when the witnesses have nothing to gain and everything to lose by coming forward, risking their storied careers and reputations. And perhaps most importantly, they did not seek to profit off of their stories in any meaningful way. When these factors all come together, it becomes exceedingly difficult not to believe. Okay, let's go. So, we're going to start with the infamous Pentagon videos nicknamed the TicTac, GoFast, and Gimbal. These were unofficially released in 2017, but were officially confirmed by the Department of Defense as legitimate in 2020. So, Kacie, I'm going to ask you to watch each video and during that, describe what you're seeing for the listeners. First, we have the GoFast and Gimbal videos, which were both filmed in 2015, taken aboard Navy fighter jets off the nuclear aircraft carrier the USS Theodore Roosevelt near the Florida coast. Both videos were captured by Raytheon Advanced Targeting Forward-Looking Infrared or ATFLIR pods, which contain the most advanced sensors and tracking technology on the market. So first, the GoFast.
Okay, so I've got the GoFast video pulled up. Oh my goodness, no wonder why it's called GoFast, because it's going really fast. I'm looking at like a sphere, circular shaped thing that is hovering above the ocean, and it is just zooming. And it looks like it's being tracked in what appears to me to be like a straight line, but it is moving very fast.
Yeah. So the GoFast videos was one of the incidents discussed in the 2024 congressional hearings, where Tim Gallaudet, who is a U.S. Navy retired Rear Admiral and the CEO of Ocean STL Consulting, testified to his personal experience with this case. He described how he was part of the naval exercise that culminated in this video. He talked about how he was one of the commanders involved in the exercise who afterward received an email containing the video, which was sent by the operations officer of the Fleet Forces Command. According to him, quote, "The very next day, the email disappeared from my account and those of the other recipients without explanation."
What? Okay, I just got chills. Why did they disappear? Who's deleting them?
So he
What are they
actually
trying to
speculated
hide?
on it that it was higher ups in the military. I mean, obviously, right? Because it's all military systems. They have a backdoor. They can do whatever they want. He speculated that it was part of a special access program. And initially, he thought it was maybe some kind of U.S. tech that they were experimenting with that wasn't supposed to be there. Because, so basically, the email was sent out as like we're really concerned. This is super dangerous. We have to shut down the training because these things are out there, right? And with the video, and that disappeared. And so he thought it may be something higher up that they were experimenting with that was accidentally deployed, but at the same time, he was continually just like thinking about it in the back of his mind, like this doesn't seem like any tech that we have. And also, as he talked to more people and became more knowledgeable about the subject, he found that so many people were seeing these all the time. Like it didn't make any sense that they would be testing any kind of equipment in this place, because like he's like, we have testing ranges. Why are they doing it in the middle of this like super high intensity, pre-deployment training exercise for these fighter pilots? Like they could get killed, right? If they collide with it, like it's so dangerous. They had to like shut down the training, and he said that's just unheard of. So that's a little bit more backstory about that. But yeah, it's very interesting that it would have been deleted.
Yeah.
Yeah. All right, so keep this in mind as we take a look at the 2 other incidents. Next, we have the gimbal.
Okay, so I have the gimbal video pulled up. Okay, I'm watching it now. Oh, wow. This one is interesting because it almost looks like it's on its side. It's like circular, but on its side. Like, it almost looks like a flying burrito. Like, but it kind of looks like oh, now it's rotating. Like a rotating burrito with wings.
That's hilarious. I've never heard that description before.
From the gimbal video, but that one's interesting because of how it moves too, and how it kind of like rotates.
Very strange.
Flying burrito.
Yeah, it's called the gimbal because people thought it looked like a gimbal.
Oh, okay. Yeah, that makes sense.
Right? Yeah, but no, it's very strangely shaped. Like it's almost like a flying saucer, but with like points going, like a point going through it, right? I don't know.
The points made me think of burrito with wings, but the burrito shape was like when it was kind of flying on the side, you know? It kind of looks more gimbal-ish when it rotates.
Totally. Okay, so according to Lieutenant Ryan Graves, a former Navy fighter pilot and flight instructor, who testified in the 2023 congressional hearings on UAPs, just like Tim Gallaudet. The gimbal video was recorded by one of his good friends during a training exercise. So according to Ryan Graves, in his interview with Lex Friedman, at first, the pilots thought that the gimbal was coming towards them as part of an intense training exercise. But then they realized as they saw the strange saucer or gimbal type shape, almost like a spinning top, that it was nothing like anything they had ever seen before. Ryan describes how in the video you can hear his friend, the pilot, talking about how there are many more of these objects all over the radar. So even though there's only one showing up in the FLIR video, this was apparently a whole swarm of them out there in a wedge formation when this was happening. Yeah. Ryan describes how the object had no visible exhaust and the formation they were in was odd because it was very imperfect and not what you would expect from a military type formation, but more organic somehow. We'll talk a little bit more about Ryan and his experiences and congressional testimony a little bit later in the episode.
That is terrifying.
I know.
Imagine like thinking you're in a training and that this is part of it, and then suddenly realizing that it's not. Like,
yeah.
Oh my God, that's terrifying.
Yeah.
I'm kind of nervous to watch this next one.
Yeah, I mean, I feel like if anyone's prepared for it, it's military fighter pilots, right? Like they probably have a pretty level head, but no, I mean, it would be terrifying to me for sure. And I'm sure them too. At the very least, it's very jarring. Okay, so lastly, we have the TicTac video, filmed off the USS Nimitz near Southern California in 2004. This video was also captured on an @FLIR pod. This is the one we're going to be doing a deep dive on today because of the extraordinary witness statement surrounding it. All right, you got it up?
Got it up. Wow, it does look like a TicTac. Like that
literally
is
just
on.
Like a TicTac.
Yeah.
It's weird.
Wow, and then just how it zooms off.
I know. The zooming at the end, it's like, peace out.
Exactly. Like, that's what I think makes this one seem slightly different is like, okay, the shape, definite TicTac. I mean, knowing me, I would have gone with like some other type of like Crunchwrap Supreme, but like, that doesn't make sense at all.
I guess like Crunchwrap Supreme.
My mind just goes to food, even though the food shape is not at all accurate for what I'm viewing. Maybe I'm just hungry.
I think you might be hungry. This one I feel like looks more like a burrito if you're gonna go with the Mexican food.
No, I agree. I definitely agree. But I will say this one is fascinating because of the zoom off. That's what makes this one seem so much different.
Like it has places to be, but where, you know?
Exactly.
Anyway.
Like, why did it quickly zoom away?
Yeah, I don't know. I don't think we'll ever know. But to summarize, The objects in all three videos move in direct defiance of everything that is possible with current human technology and known about basic physics. That's not my opinion. That's the opinion of the people who witnessed it and have come forward, and also, different people have analyzed these videos. Keeping this in mind, let's get to the details of the TicTac video. What makes this UAP particularly significant is that it was intimately witnessed by 24-year veteran Air Force pilot instructor David Fravor, commander of hundreds of pilots in Strike Fighter Squadron 41, also known as the famous Black Aces. You may also recognize him from the 2023 congressional hearings about UAPs. The information that I share about him was compiled from various interviews cited in the notes, including the Phenomenon documentary and an interview with YouTuber Lex Friedman, as well as his congressional testimony and official statement.
Wow.
So, yeah, I know. He actually works at the actual Top Gun training ground. Like, he's literally like Top Gun instructor.
I mean, of course he does, right? Like...
Yeah. Mm-hmm. Super impressive.
Which makes it that much more credible and makes me, I mean, I was already a believer to a certain extent, but this is definitely the most credible UAP story. I was going to say UFO story I've heard so far. So I definitely want to know more about him.
For sure. Okay. This started in 2004 when Commander David Fravor was scheduled to lead a training exercise. But as he and his wingman Alex Dietrich took flight, that's two pilots and two co-pilots in two different planes.
Okay.
They suddenly were told by air control that training was going to be suspended for, quote, real-world tasking. So it turns out that the air controller had been observing these objects in the air in the combat system for the previous 2 weeks and wanted David and the other pilots to go check them out. When they reached the point that they were directed to, they noticed white water below. And this stood out because apparently it was a very blue sky, clear day, and no reason for white water. As all four of them looked down, they saw the tic-tac-shaped object moving, quote, very abruptly over the white water. David said the object looked completely smooth, with no wings or anything else on the surface. So, he descended to approach it, as the other plane stayed above. As he does, it starts moving up and towards his plane. Then, as it gets closer, it's now right in front of him, and then it rapidly accelerates and then disappears. It's just gone. And at that exact moment, the other two pilots in the plane above also lose track of it. They don't know where it went.
Wow.
Then, less than a minute later, air control told the pilots that the object had reappeared over 60 miles away at the exact place they were supposed to meet after their originally scheduled training, which changes every training and is only known to the pilots performing the training exercise and their instructors. How did the object know exactly where they were going to be when it hadn't even happened yet?
I have chills.
Right?
Chills.
Yeah.
Okay, so many things right there to unpack. The fact that it was 60 miles away.
Yeah. I mean, that's very high speed. He said it, was comparable to the speed of, a fighter jet. Like a fighter jet could potentially make that, but it was like going from almost like a standstill, just accelerating so fast, and then just where it showed up, it doesn't make any sense, right?
Exactly, especially because the spot changes every time, like you said. Like, that is so, I mean, that gave me chills. Like, how does this being, whatever it is, know where to go? And for what? Wow.
For what? Yeah, I don't know. I mean, I actually have perhaps a little bit of a theory that maybe there isn't even a being inside, but we'll get to all of that later.
Ooh.
Yeah, maybe in future episodes. So, anyway, David and the other pilots got back to base and told another crew that was about to launch what happened. This crew then took the famous TicTac video. David talks about how in the video, the object emits no infrared that you would expect as evidence of a propulsion system, just like the UAPs in the Gimbal and GoFast videos. It is simply not operating by any laws of nature and technology that we are aware of.
Wow.
Perhaps the most shocking part of this is that, according to David, this incident was never investigated by the Air Force.
I mean, should we even be surprised? I mean, does our government do anything that they should?
I mean, I wouldn't go that far. I don't know. I feel like our defense is pretty on their shit, so it's surprising that they would ignore this.
That's true. I do go 0 to 100, kind of like
You,
a TikTok.
you do. You're
Kind of like a TikTok.
So funny.
But yeah, that is just bizarre that they wouldn't want to investigate it. Or maybe they were and just not telling anyone. I don't know.
See, okay, that I actually I'm of the opinion, I believe, that there are sectors of the government that know exactly what's going on, or at least have a lot more information about it, are investigating this kind of stuff, but it's just not falling to the Air Force at that level, you know? So like, even if there are investigations going on in general about this phenomena, it's not reaching David Fravor, you know, it's not reaching the people on the ground who are experiencing it. But somebody somewhere has an idea of what's going on.
Somebody somewhere knows.
So, in my opinion, the TicTac incident is one of the most credible in history because of the DoD confirmed video evidence combined with the immense credibility of Commander David Fravor in addition to the 3 other pilot witnesses. I mean, do you get more credible than a 24-year Air Force flight instructor veteran leading a squad of hundreds of pilots? His entire career has been built upon real-world, practical, life and death situations. He is smart and articulate, but more than anything, he has been trained to observe things closely while in flight and evaluate potential threats as a core part of his job. When you see this guy speak, and I highly recommend watching one of his videos or interviews linked in the notes, you just feel like he's so honest and genuine, and I believe him. He's not pushing a narrative. You know, he's not trying to say it's aliens. He's not trying to get you to buy something. He's just explaining his experience and analyzing what he saw. So to me, this incident in particular opens the door and forces us to look further to try to understand what the hell is going on. But before we move on, I have one more twist in this story to share.
Ooh.
Whenever we investigate anything, I think it is so important to look at the source of the information. In this case, exactly how and why these videos were released. I assumed at first that the Pentagon itself as a larger entity decided to release these videos for the public good or knowledge. I think a lot of people may have assumed this if they, saw the videos, saw the article that came out. But when I looked a little deeper, I found this was absolutely not the case. The following information is sourced from James Fox's documentary, The Phenomenon, which I highly recommend watching after you finish this episode. According to Chris Mellon, who served as the Deputy Assistant Secretary of Defense for Intelligence in the Bill Clinton and George W. Bush administrations, a single Department of Defense employee gave the videos to him in the Pentagon parking lot, which he then gave to the New York Times to be published in 2017. He describes how this employee, who remains anonymous, quote, bent the rules for the greater good of humanity, sneaking the tapes to Mellon without the knowledge or approval from his superiors. Mellon describes in later interviews how quickly after this happened, the DoD tightened their classification requirements, making all UAP footage highly classified to avoid any future leaks.
Wow. I mean, of course, right? Because why would they just give us the information for our knowledge?
Yeah. Why would they tell the truth? I mean, that's going to be something we'll talk a lot about in the actually the next episode and the episode after that I'm doing. So
I mean,
we'll get to investigating that.
Yeah, and props to that whistleblower, like putting their job on the line to do that for the greater good. Yeah. Like, that's wild. And you answered a big question for me because I was wondering why this was the first case that has
Right?
actually been in the New York Times like that.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah, it was because somebody took the initiative to sneak it out of the Pentagon, basically.
Props to them.
Yeah, I'm grateful for that person. Absolutely. That is a heroic act for sure. So, not only do these 3 videos represent some of the most compelling evidence of technology not known to humans operating on planet Earth, but they also reveal something that our government did not want us to see. They even changed the regulations to make sure nothing like this ever gets released again. Think about this critically. The government only acknowledged these videos' existence and confirmed their validity because someone leaked them without its knowledge or approval, and they were published on the front page of the New York Times. They literally had to address them. But if the Pentagon and DoD had gotten their way, those videos would have never seen the light of day. This has to make you wonder, how many more videos are being kept from the public?
Thousands. Millions?
I know.
I don't know.
Right? I mean, maybe not millions. I don't know. I mean, the thing is, I am of the opinion.
Been around that long, but
I know, yeah. But there's, I mean, probably a lot of videos and also probably a lot of other evidence, which we'll get to. Again, I think they're hiding a lot more than just FLIR footage. Let me just say that. So, let's talk about a man that I mentioned earlier named Ryan Graves. If I started this episode talking about Ryan's full story, it might feel like a stretch to ask you to believe him. But now, having reviewed the irrefutable evidence of UAPs released by the Pentagon, I think you'll have quite a different perspective of his statements. He testified in front of Congress in 2023 with some extremely alarming allegations, and the information I'm about to share comes from both his congressional testimony and his interview with Lex Friedman, linked in the show notes.
Wow, so, I'm scared for him.
Right?
Just getting out there and telling the truth and knowing that people are going to tear you apart and not believe you and having to deal with the government.
Very brave.
It's so brave, and it makes me believe him.
Yeah. No, exactly. That's what I mentioned earlier. It's like they have a lot to lose coming forward, right? They have very impressive careers, and this kind of stuff is pretty taboo. It's associated with fringe conspiracies and people who have lost their minds, you know? And so to come out and say, no, this is happening and I have the evidence, it's very brave. It's courageous, and I definitely commend them. David Fravor and Ryan Graves and Tim Gallaudet and all the guys who've come out and talked about this. So, Lieutenant Ryan Graves is not only a former Navy fighter pilot and flight instructor, but he has also worked on advanced research programs for the Defense Advanced Research Projects Agency, the Office of Naval Research, and Air Force Research Labs on topics of, quote, multi-agent collaborative autonomy, AI-assisted air-to-air combat, and manned-unmanned teaming technologies. Whoa. Similar to David Fravor, this guy is an extremely accomplished, extremely experienced military man. He is also known as someone who has spoken out loudly about the prevalence of UAP encounters in the military, saying that he has witnessed advanced UAP on multiple sensor systems firsthand, demonstrating complex maneuvers, patterns, and erratic movements on a regular basis.
Wait, a regular basis?
A regular basis, yeah.
Oh, wow.
That's what he said.
Okay, we just got these 3 videos from the New York Times. But this is occurring on a regular basis. Yeah, there's definitely thousands of other videos that we have not seen.
Absolutely. Absolutely. He said that he testified before Congress to, quote, voice the concerns of countless commercial aircrew and military veterans who have confided their similar encounters with me.
Wow.
He is insistent that advanced UAP are a national security problem that urgently needs to be addressed.
I mean, it sounds like it if it's happening that regularly.
Yeah, no, literally. It absolutely is. I mean, it's putting training programs, people in those at risk because they might collide with this thing. And I mean, even just seeing it, it's like, imagine you're operating this really high-tech machine in the air and you see this thing that distracts you. It takes you out of the moment. You could make a mistake, right? And that could cost somebody's life. So I think it's really important. According to Ryan, these UAP were witnessed consistently in airspace off the coast of Virginia Beach, where he and many other pilots trained for years. Observed first by their radar, then by their FLIR infrared systems, and then eventually with their eyes. As I mentioned earlier, he was airborne during the Gimbal Incident, and it was one of his good friends who recorded the video in his fighter jet. Ryan also describes a different UAP appearing to his comrades as a, quote, dark gray or black cube inside a clear translucent sphere.
Interesting.
The imagery of that is otherworldly and chilling.
A sphere. Whoa.
Like a clear sphere with a gray black cube inside of it.
Yeah, I'm picturing that. Right? And yeah, I can't even imagine seeing that.
It's like nothing I've ever seen before, right?
Yeah.
Yeah, and this is like thousands of feet in the air, so very strange. According to Ryan, the pilots who witnessed this object immediately canceled their training and flew back to base, alarmed that they'd almost collided with it, and filed reports with their superiors. However, there was no official acknowledgement of the incident and no further mechanism created to report the sightings. To bring it full circle, Ryan describes how years later, a student of his called him and told him how he had finally seen one of the gray cubes in the spheres himself and how they're still out there on the East Coast. Isn't that comforting?
What? I'm also wondering, like, okay, so they're on the East Coast. Are they on different parts of the world? Like,
I think so.
I mean, too.
Even the TicTac video was off the coast of Southern California, right?
Yeah. That's
so
wild.
Yeah, very strange. Anyway, Ryan and the other pilots who experienced these encounters didn't jump to aliens or UFOs, but rather advanced intelligence gathering military operations, either by the US or by another country. Keep in mind, these are trained combat specialists, not conspiracy theorists that we're talking about. But he also describes how these objects' behaviors seem to continually defy everything we know about modern technology and how it operates. For example, staying perfectly still at extremely high winds and heights in ways that would be impossible for any kind of normal aircraft or drone. Also, having absolutely no visible heat signature that would indicate any propulsion system. Currently, he says that he still doesn't know what they could be, but says that he no longer thinks that it could be U.S. technology. And, considering the developments in the past few years, feels that, quote, non-human intelligence is a good framework from which to approach this phenomena. I know.
Right? I mean, I agree. I feel like we would know if other countries had this technology or if we did. Like, it's just crazy.
Yeah. It's truly crazy. It is. I mean, that's why I decided to do this episode, because it blew my mind and I think more people should be thinking about it, right?
Agreed. I mean, you're blowing my mind right now.
Thank you. In his official statement to Congress, Ryan asserts the following. 1. UAP are in our airspace, but they are grossly underreported. These sightings are not rare or isolated. They are routine. 2. The stigma attached to UAP is real and powerful and challenges national security. It silences commercial pilots who fear professional repercussions, discourages witnesses, and is only compounded by recent government claims questioning the credibility of eyewitness testimony. I think it's an important point, too, about the commercial pilots being discouraged from reporting, because if you're a commercial pilot, I mean, if you even have a hint of not being in your right mind, right, or hallucinating things, as people would probably think, a lot of people, if you told them about this, it's like they have a vested interest in staying quiet, right, to not lose their job.
Yes.
So it's a difficult situation for sure. And 3, the government knows more about UAP than is shared publicly, and excessive classification practices keep crucial information hidden. Obviously, at this point, we know that, right? Today, Ryan has left his career in the military and founded Americans for Safe Aerospace to create a center of research and public education for aircrew impacted by UAP encounters that now has over 28,000 members of pilots, veterans, and government officials who've had these experiences. He's also the chair. 28,000? And that's just people who've joined this, right?
What? Wow. Yeah. So people are being silenced. That is crazy.
Yeah. Yeah, it is. And also, so this was in 2023, his testimony that he submitted, or his official statement that he submitted to Congress. I read that, and it said that this his organization, Americans for Safe Aerospace, had 5,000 people, and now it has 28,000. So that means just in the past 2 years, he's gathered that much more support after people heard his story, right? So it just begs the question, like, how many more people are out there that could hear about this and be like, oh, I've had that experience too, right? And want to come forward and want to talk to other people about what the fuck happened.
Yeah.
Yeah. Now, you understand, at the beginning of my journey down this rabbit hole, I never believed a word of UFO or alien content until I deep dived into the incidents and testimonies that we just reviewed. After this dive, one is forced to look in the mirror and wonder, what have I been dismissing up to this point? If even one incident is proven to be wholly real, as I believe the above incidents are, then we are forced to re-examine everything that we previously dismissed as fiction.
So true. And I think maybe that's why they don't want us to know anything.
Yeah, because then you'd be like, well, what about Roswell? What about all these cases, right? And look, I know a lot of people lie. I know that there are a lot of cases with disputed evidence. And I know that we can't just trust people because they say something, right? As I said earlier, it's like you have to have some more concrete proof. But this is the concrete proof, right? Mm-hmm. So, okay. This next case is one that, after hundreds of cases I've reviewed, has stuck with me in a way I can't even describe, due to the disturbing nature of some of the witness testimony. Every time I watch something about it or see the drawings associated with it, I get chills. And while we are taking a leap into a strange potential reality that I know will seem hard to believe, I ask you only to keep an open mind. This is essentially a teaser for the types of cases I'm going to cover in the future as I investigate the many UAP encounters that I find credible and thus worth bringing attention to. In this case, 62 children all witnessed and experienced the same thing at the same time and still hold steady in their conviction even decades later. We're going back in time to Zimbabwe in 1994. This case is known as the Ariel School Incident. On the elementary school playground of the Ariel School in Rua, Zimbabwe, on September 16, 1994, 62 children between the ages of 6 and 12 witnessed something so otherworldly it seemed impossible, if not for the sheer number of adamant and terrified witnesses. All the adult faculty were inside for the duration of this occurrence in a staff-wide meeting, which I guess can be attributed to the 90s. Because
right. I'm like, wait, all of the adults were inside? Where
not a single adult outside.
62 children were left unattended, no supervision.
Actually, there were more than 62. 62 were just the ones who happened to be in the area witnessed this incident. So
okay,
yeah,
great.
they left
that makes me feel better. There were even more children left unattended.
Yeah. Well, the 90s, I guess, because this also, I'll note, it was a very wealthy private school. So it's not like it was even, a public school that was underfunded. It's they probably should have had someone out there with them. But anyway, while skeptics cite this as a case of mass hysteria, many of the children suffered from nightmares after the incident and publicly stuck to their story for decades.
Wow.
Despite accusations that they were lying or crazy. I think it is important to note that not a single Ariel student has come forward to say that they made it up. So, on the day in question, according to extensive interviews of the students by author Cynthia Hind and Harvard researcher, psychiatrist, and Pulitzer Prize-winning author John Mack. They were on the playground when silver disc-shaped objects began to descend from the sky and landed in the grass next to some shrubs and trees a small ways in the distance, just outside the property of the school. Clips of these interviews can be found both on YouTube and in the documentary Ariel Phenomenon. The children described seeing between 1 and 4 small human-like hairless creatures with big black eyes, pale plasticky skin, and black skin-tight clothing, who exited the crafts and began approaching them in what some of them described as a graceful, fluid, slow motion type run.
What?
I know. They described seeing the creatures disappearing and reappearing multiple times, almost like reality itself was glitching like a video game. While most of the children ran away, some of the older or braver ones stayed, apparently curious or frozen in place. Now, this next part is what gives me all the chills about this encounter. During filmed interviews with John Mack, at least 6 different children reported experiencing telepathic communications from the beings through their eyes.
What?
Feeling compelled to look at the creatures.
Oh my God, Shelby, chills. Just like chills all
Right?
over my body. Oh my God. Also,
Terrifying.
part of me wishes that I was one of those kids just so I could experience that, which I know.
You're so brave.
But I feel like I probably would regret saying that if I actually experienced it and had nightmares from it. But telepathic communication with another being is something that, I feel like I've experienced with humans and with my dogs, but not with a being that I had no clue what the being was. That must have been just unbelievable.
Yeah.
But I believe it.
Well, just wait. There's more to it. You can make your assessment after I read you everything. But I believe it too. And I also think that it unfortunately, we'll get into this, but it seemed to have a pretty negative effect on the children who witnessed this because people don't believe them, right?
It's hard.
We'll get into it, but yeah, it is hard. It's so hard. And I admire you for being interested in having an experience like that. I think a lot of people would be absolutely terrified. And I'll see if you still have that opinion after I tell you what telepathic message they received.
Yes, please tell me.
Yeah. So, they described receiving messages about, quote, something that was going to happen to the earth, which they thought had something to do with pollution or technology. One girl described seeing a world with no trees and no air, where people would be dying.
Did she predict January 2025 in SoCal? Because that's feeling
I know.
eerily similar.
Yeah, literally. It is. It's crazy. I think you could say this could be a prediction of nuclear warfare, you know, or technology, right? Or pollution. I don't know. It's crazy. And I think that there have been catastrophic events throughout all of history, right? We've always had wildfires. We've always had floods and earthquakes and tsunamis and all the things. But this seems to be hinting at something more that is somehow caused by humans, or at the very least human technology, right?
Correct.
So I have a question for you. Why do you think they would be sharing this message with children? It seems like an odd choice, right?
So my mind immediately goes to this being spiritual, because I have always heard that children are more able to connect to the spiritual realm and they're more open to receiving messages. So I wonder if these beings purposely went to an elementary school because they felt that the children would be more willing to believe what they were saying.
Interesting.
Or maybe they targeted children because they think, okay, if we can impact them while they're young, they'll be the ones to change the world and make these necessary changes to prevent this world where there's no trees and no air to breathe and people are dying because of all the technology. So maybe it was that. And I'm also curious about it taking place in Zimbabwe. Like, why there?
I know. I mean, all these questions. I like your observations, especially that maybe they hoped these children would somehow change the world. Although it seems kind of crazy to think that you could show, like, 7, 10, even 62 children this type of message and expect that they will somehow change the entire world.
Right.
To be completely different and go in the opposite direction of, whatever this horrible future is. I mean, it's a tall order, certainly.
It is.
It really is.
And it's kind of
for these poor children.
I'm kind of on the fence of like, okay, were these beings being helpful, trying to warn us? Or was it instilling fear? Or
That's
both?
A question we have to ask.
Yeah.
I don't know. And so this message did not contain any instructions to do anything, but simply conveyed this sense of impending doom. Multiple of these children also corroborated this telepathic experience as adults in later interviews. The children were also encouraged by the researchers to create drawings of what they had seen, and these became infamously associated with the incident because of their eerie and remarkably consistent nature. You can Google them, and I'll also be sharing them on our social media and Patreon. Both John Mack and Cynthia Hines concluded that they completely believed the children had witnessed what they said they had. One key point that Cynthia brings up is that when people or children recount exactly the same story, it points to some kind of deceit or corroboration where they got together and fabricated a shared story. But, as in this case, when many people report similar stories from differing viewpoints that describe generally the same event, this is clear evidence that they're being truthful. In Ariel Phenomenon, the documentary, many of the children who witnessed the incident are interviewed again as adults years later and recount their experiences with complete consistency and apparent sincerity. It just seems to me like they're telling the truth when you hear them talk, and I encourage you to watch this documentary and decide for yourself if you think they're being honest. Some of them talk about how this incident weighed heavily on their lives, negatively affecting their future relationships, perceived credibility, and general outlook. They were afraid to tell people that they met in their lives for fear of sounding absolutely crazy. In the documentary, some of the witnesses describe how as children, they were ostracized by their parents following the incident.
Oh my God.
I know, especially those with a religious background.
Mm.
They talk about how it became something extremely painful and difficult to talk or even think about. And it's important to note, I think, that none of them have sought fame or fortune in the intervening years.
Gosh, I feel so bad for them because,
know.
number one, I believe them. They're children. It's horrible to think about their parents not believing them. It's horrible to think about them going about life and having a hard time because they were, for whatever reason, chosen to receive this message. And I also hate that the beings didn't give them instructions. It's like,
right?
Thanks for telling me there's impending doom, but like you give me no solutions? Like, bruh, like,
I know.
not cool, aliens, not cool, okay? Like,
Seriously.
If you're gonna terrorize children by telling them about impending doom, let's give them like a workbook on how to prevent this.
Well, yeah, and you're assuming that if this is true, right, the aliens somehow, or aliens, whatever they are, not human intelligence, right? We're able to predict the future. So if you can predict the future, like, tell me how to fix it, right?
Exactly.
Like...
Yeah, that part. Yeah. So it's, I mean, I just feel for these kids, and I know what it's like to not be believed and to put yourself out there and know that you are putting yourself out there for no gain. And to have people not believe you when you're absolutely telling the truth is so hurtful and really impacts every area of your life. So I feel for them big time, and I believe them.
Yeah. Yeah, I believe them too. Especially after watching the documentary, it definitely is convincing, I
And
would
the
say. So I
drawings
recommend
too.
it.
That's,
Yeah.
yeah. Mm-hmm.
All right. Considering the circumstances of this incident, supported by the confirmed UAP videos we reviewed earlier, I find it to be extremely compelling evidence of non-human intelligence operating on our planet. Whether you believe it or not, you have to admit that these children saw something that affected them deeply and has stuck with them their entire lives. In telling you this story, I hope to set the stage for future explorations of apparently credible interactions with UAP or supernatural phenomena. I do not ask you to believe that aliens are walking among us, but I do invite you to question the statements of our government and news media and what they withhold from us or discredit as misinformation. There is ample evidence that government agencies not only cover up incidents and suppress the truth, but actively engage in disinformation campaigns. But that is a story for a whole other episode. Now, before we get to our final discussion, I want to take us full circle back to the congressional hearings, first in 2023 and then more recently in 2024. Hearing Dave Grush say that our government is in possession of non-human biologics in 2023 is what started it all for me, and led me to then listen to the remarkable stories of David Fravor and Ryan Graves. Dave Grush, who is a former Air Force officer who left the Pentagon's UAP task force to become a whistleblower, said in the hearings that he knew the exact location of some of the UAPs in the government's possession, and that secretive programs have been running crashed UAP retrieval missions for decades and then attempting to reverse engineer the technology in the recovered vessels they find. When asked if anyone had ever been murdered to cover up information about extraterrestrials or non-human intelligence, Grush said he could not comment.
That's a yes.
He did say.
That's a yes.
Right?
A no comment is always a yes. Let's be real. Let's be fucking 100. That is a yes.
That's what I thought. He did say that he and some of his colleagues had experienced administrative terrorism, and he has feared for his life since coming forward.
Oh, wow.
Yeah. I mean, I would too, honestly.
Same. If he needs a bunker, I'll set one up. We got you.
Right? The 2023 hearing led to another hearing in 2024, with more disturbing revelations that raise even more questions. Those who testified included Tim Gallaudet, who was mentioned earlier in relation to the GoFast incident, who specifically mentioned unidentified submerged phenomena in his testimony, describing encounters in the ocean with underwater craft and saying, quote, "Nothing we know of technology-wise could replicate that," in talking about its behavior.
Wow.
Yeah. This reminded me of some crazy allegations of underwater phenomena by a very infamous 4chan leaker that is totally unconfirmed and totally anonymous, but so much fun to talk about. I may or may not mention this in the next episodes in connection with some pretty crazy legitimate evidence.
Ooh, I can't wait to hear about that. Also,
I'm super excited.
The underwater stuff just fascinates me.
Right?
Because I already think octopuses are aliens, but who knows? Yeah. Ooh, I can't wait for that one.
Yeah, it's going to be fun. All right. Back to the congressional hearings. Next, we have Michael Gold, a former NASA Associate Administrator of Space Policy and a member of the NASA UAP Independent Study Team, and then Michael Schellenberger, an author and journalist and founder of news outlet Public, who has had direct communication with whistleblowers regarding UAPs and the government's lies to Congress and the public about them. And lastly, we have Lou Elizondo, a former Defense Department official who was the senior ranking person of the DoD's Advanced Aerospace Threat Identification Program, a secretive Pentagon unit that studied UAPs before he resigned to become a whistleblower in 2017, just like Dave Grush. I think some of the most alarming information shared came from Elizondo, So I'm going to review some of that with you right now. First of all, Elizondo said that he was aware of non-human biologics being recovered, confirming what Dave Grush said in 2023 and even elaborating by saying that the government has possession of, quote, bodies.
Bodies?
Bodies.
Non-human bodies.
Yes. I know, right? Because non-human intelligence to me, I mean, I don't know. It could be anything, right? It could be an amorphous gaseous substance. Like we don't know, but
yes.
But bodies, or even like AI, right? But
yeah,
bodies.
But bodies.
Bodies.
Body yada yada yada. Yeah.
Okay. His other statements had concerning implications about our nuclear facilities and UAP interfering with them, confirming many anecdotal accounts by military personnel that I will cover in a future episode. Representative Glenn Grothman asked Elizondo if UAP incursions were more common or likely over sensitive military installations than normal airports, and Elizondo responded that, quote, there is definitely enough data to suggest a relationship between sensitive U.S. military installations, also some of our nuclear equities, and some of our Department of Energy sites. This is not a new trend. This has been going on for decades, and that information has been obfuscated, unfortunately, from folks like you in this committee. So, I have a question for you, Kacie. Why do you think this is a thing? Why do they have such an interest in our nuclear and weapons facilities and tech?
Well, okay, here's my thought process, and maybe I'm being naive by being like positive about the non-human intelligence. But my thought is, if they find it necessary to go warn a bunch of school children about impending doom, then maybe they want to prevent war. Maybe they want to prevent violence, and maybe that's why there's such an interest in our military and our weaponry. Like, to me, that makes sense, is if they want to prevent doom, then they probably are curious about our
capabilities.
Yeah, exactly.
For sure. Yeah, I mean, I tend to agree. Absolutely. And we'll get more into that in the next episodes for sure. Theories surrounding that. So, Elizondo also said that the DoD is hiding information from Congress and the public regarding UAPs because, quote, it's easier to be quiet and suppress when you don't have the answers. I personally am not sure if I completely believe this. I mean, I do think, of course, the DoD doesn't have all the answers, but I think that they know a lot more than maybe even Elizondo does, you know, and they may not have shared it with him. Like, there are higher ups, I believe, who have a lot more answers that they aren't sharing with the public.
I completely agree with that take. And yeah, I'm sure they know more than all of us because they've been able to study what they've found and really try to figure it out. And whether or not they figured it out, they're hiding it from us. And
yeah,
I don't like that.
Yeah. No, I don't like it either. I mean, look, you can make an argument that for, you know, national defense, like it's important to maybe keep some of the stuff classified, but there's a lot more they could be telling us. There's something going on and they're keeping it to themselves. And I don't know if it has to do with religion. I did hear someone say in the UFO community that they were told by someone at NASA that we are a very religious country, in response to a question about why we haven't disclosed more, right? Why the government hasn't told us. So I do wonder if religion is one of the things that has stopped more of this information from getting out.
Another reason why I just want to shout out the whistleblowers. Blow the whistle.
Right?
Blow the whistle.
I love it. Yes, whistleblowers are heroes.
They are.
Absolute heroes. Like, risking their safety, risking absolute ridicule too, right? Like, I mean, so many people don't believe them. So many people think they're absolute whack jobs who are just trying to get attention. When the reality is, I mean, sure, there are those people. I'm not going to say it's not true. Definitely people come forward, make up stories, lie to get attention, fame, fortune, whatever. But I think the people testifying before Congress are the real deal.
Completely agree. And all the stories you've shared on this episode all seem very credible. No one's monetized their story. Like, it's, yeah, they have no reason to lie.
The one thing I will note, people have criticized Lou Elizondo for writing a book and releasing it. So he has written a book. You know, he's sold and made money off the book, right?
But
so
I mean,
people criticize
can you
that.
blame
I know
him? Like, if
No,
I
I can't.
experienced that, I would want people to know about it, and so I would write about it. I don't,
I know.
and no one knew that his book would even sell, so he was just putting the information out there.
Yeah, no,
Is
I
how
mean,
I view
I
that.
totally agree. I think even if he is seeking attention, even if he is doing interviews, he's promoting his book, I still think that doesn't discredit necessarily what's in the book and what he says happened, right? So, I mean, you could look at it different ways, but I personally believe that just because somebody has, you know, monetized something some way doesn't discredit them. I just also go back to, like, you know, Ryan Graves, David Fravor, they're arguably even more credible because they didn't do anything to monetize. I don't know. But anyway, I believe that Lou Elizondo is the real deal, though, personally, based on what I know thus far.
I'm with you.
So another thing, it's important to note that repeatedly in both the 2023 and 2024 hearings, those testifying would respond to questions by saying that they could only reveal the answer in a SCIF, a sensitive compartmented information facility. This means far away from public prying eyes. We can only imagine how many SCIFs have convened between 2023 and now, and how much more information may have been revealed that has remained confidential and classified.
Anytime someone asks me a question I don't want to answer, I'm just going to tell them I need a skiff.
I love it.
Sorry, we got to go to a skiff.
That's funny. Then the SCIF just never happens.
Yeah. Wow. Okay. That, I mean, even just hearing that makes me believe their stories even more.
Yeah, well, I mean, they don't want to risk doing something treasonous or compromising national security. I believe that these men are patriots, and I believe that if they have information they think, you know, first of all, it's super classified and they don't want to release it to the public without more of a procedure around that. Sure. But I also think that they don't want to do anything to compromise national security. Right. You know, they don't want to give information out that could possibly get in the wrong hands, you know, or reveal things to our enemies like China, Iran, you know, Russia. They don't want that getting out. So I respect the need for a SCIF, right? For them saying, I can't say this in a public forum, and people can get angry about that. But a lot of people have pointed to that being like, oh, they don't want to give us any hard evidence. How can we even believe that it's real? And I'm like, well, you know, I mean, I totally see the other side of like the hard evidence, maybe the stuff that is the most sensitive, and they don't feel comfortable just sharing it in the public without any kind of, you know, procedure around that.
No, I totally get that. And even my mom has told me about my grandpa working at Area 51.
What? Your grandpa worked at Area 51?
Yes. And he was so tight-lipped about everything. I mean, my mom tried to get information and he would not reveal a thing.
I'm so curious, Kacie.
Me too. I want to know so bad. And she did say, like, she asked about aliens.
Yeah.
And he kind of did, like, a nod, but, like, would not disclose anything.
Do you know anything more about the work he was doing specifically?
I don't. I wish I did. Wow. But I know that he was one of the creators of the SR-71, which is a plane. So I'm sure he was doing some type of engineering work there.
Yeah.
But
yeah, that's fascinating. I had no idea. Okay, that's so cool. I mean, honestly, I can see if you're one of these people working in these types of top secret programs, like, you don't want to reveal it to your family because you could potentially be putting them in danger or compromising, you know, your job, your livelihood, your career, everything you've worked towards. So can't necessarily blame him for not telling your mom, even though I want to know.
Oh, I want to know so bad. Yes.
Yeah. Okay, so I have to say, it truly cannot be overstated that these individuals testifying before Congress risk prosecution and jail time if they are found to not be telling the truth. They were all sworn in under oath, and in doing so agreed to face the consequence of prison if the information they provided turns out to be untrue. Like, just let that sink in. You know what I mean? Because a lot of people will say they're making it up, they're liars, but they can go to prison if they lie before Congress under oath.
Yeah, exactly. It's not worth it.
Yeah, and I mean, ask yourself, these people in particular, with the resumes that they have and their careers and their credibility, would they really risk prison just to make this stuff up?
I mean, I wouldn't.
I wouldn't, and I don't even have the resumes that they have, right?
Yeah.
Like,
Same.
I'm just an artist, but I don't know why anyone would, but let alone people who are, 24-year military veterans and flight instructors and just very notable people, right? Okay, so the most recent congressional hearing led to the release by Congress of an absolutely mind-blowing and bone-chilling whistleblower report by Michael Schellenberger, published on the Congress official website regarding something called Immaculate Constellation.
Wait, isn't that how Jesus was born?
Like, literally, when I was writing this, I kept writing Immaculate Conception and then being like, oh, wait, no. It's a play on words. Who knows what it means, right? But it's like it's a top secret program, and they named it Immaculate Constellation.
I mean, that's kind of hilarious.
It's kind of funny. It's totally, you know that the guy who chose that was like giggling a little bit, right?
Oh, for sure.
Yeah. Thought he was real funny. I also want to mention, so there is some controversy surrounding who actually submitted this report, whose whistleblower it was. A journalist named Jeremy Corbell has taken some credit for this, right? Was pretty upset that this was released and it was said to be officially Michael Schellenberger's. He says that he is behind it. I don't know if this is just like a grab for attention from him, or if he's, really, if there was some kind of cover up and he actually is behind it. I don't know, but I just had to mention that, and I'll talk more about it the next episode. I'm telling you, I have never been more unnerved than when I was reading some of the revelations in this report. I'm going to review all the craziest parts with you in detail in the next episode, part 2 of this mini-series on UAP. For now, I hope I leave you with a sense of wonder and curiosity for the unknown. What do you think these phenomena are? Are they future humans traveling back in time? Some sort of artificial intelligence? Are they crafts from another dimension, as was suggested by David Grush? Do you think that they're aliens coming from across the universe? Or are they simply extremely advanced human technology that is being somehow hidden entirely from public view? And if so, what country or corporation could be behind this? Kacie, I want to know your opinion, and I also want you, the listener, to tell us on social media at @ChillSeekerPodcast on Instagram, @ChillSeekerPod on TikTok, and @ChillSeeker_pod on X. You can also subscribe to us on Patreon for bonus content for free indefinitely. We'll be responding to comments, answering questions, and taking suggestions for episodes in our Patreon, so we really hope to see you there. So Kacie, what do you think? What are they?
Gosh, that's such a good question because, obviously I don't know, but some really good theories were brought up today. I definitely don't think that it's human. I don't think it's human created, and I also don't believe that they're future humans. I would go more of the spiritual other dimension route with it. I also think it's fascinating to think about it coming from the ocean, because when we think about aliens, we think about outer space. And I kind of like the idea that maybe it's coming from the depths of the ocean, because us as humans, there's so much ocean that we have not discovered. So I'm looking forward to your other episodes, and then maybe I could give you a more solid opinion on where I stand on this, because this is truly fascinating. What do you think?
Okay, so first of all, I agree the oceans thing is so interesting. And Tim Gallaudet was talking about how we've only mapped 5% of the ocean. So we don't know what's out there, right? I think if they are in the ocean, they probably didn't originate in the ocean. I mean, who knows, right? But I think they're using that as a cover for just whatever the fuck they're doing. Like, who knows what
Like
they're
a
up to?
hideout?
But yeah, hideout, because humans we're so weak in the water, right? Like, we can't explore it. We can't see through it.
I'm a drowner.
It's I'm a drowner. You're hilarious. No, but really, like, we can't survive. Like, yeah, there's just so much unexplored. If, you know, our skies, at the very least, we can see them, right? Humans are walking around looking up at the sky all the time. People are not in the ocean all the time in the same way, especially at the depths of the ocean. So I think it's a great place for them to hide out. And we are definitely going to revisit this. And I think my third episode, we're going to be talking a lot about different theories with that. And I wish there was, you know, more information, but there are some crazy stories that I can't wait to tell you about.
Oh my gosh, I'm so excited.
Yeah. So as far as what I think they are, I definitely lean towards interdimensional, because that's what Dave Grush hinted at in, I think, in the Congressional testimonies, and then also in an interview he did with Ross Coulthard, who's like a reporter guy. But he hinted at that, and he has information I don't. So I don't know. I think it's a good theory at the very least. And the fact that they're calling it non-human intelligence and no longer extraterrestrials also, I think, is a big hint that they don't think what we're dealing with is necessarily from another planet or solar system. They think it might be from a different dimension. So yeah, based on that information, I'm leaning towards that, but I don't know. Who the fuck knows, right? So we're going to do our best to investigate, though. Like, yes. I am bringing all the best stories that I've been obsessed with. So in the next couple episodes, doing a little mini series on this, and I can't wait to share so much more with you. But anyway, thank you so much for listening and exploring all the things that keep us up at night, and we appreciate you so much. If you enjoyed this episode, please give us a 5-star rating wherever you're listening, and come on Patreon to tell us what you think about all of this. Was I totally wrong about something, or is there something that I don't know that you do? Please tell us on Patreon, because we want to have a conversation with you. Anyway, we hope to see you next time. Keep seeking chills. Bye.
Bye. Blow the whistle.